Welcome to RecLess, a podcast making people smarter and more knowledgeable about parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country, bringing their own unique and sometimes entertaining perspectives with a surprise guest each episode. This is RecLess.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the third episode of RecLess, a podcast focusing on the industry of park and rec through three close friends that are scattered throughout different parts of the country. My name is Jay Tryon. I am your host today, and as always, we are here with Shane Mize and Tom Venniro. What's going on, guys?
What is up?
Glad to be here. Looking forward to today.
Well, it's officially August. How's the rest of the summer going? You guys wrapping up camp yet, or you still have more time?
Last week of camp this week, last week of swim lessons this week. Teachers start going back to school next week for a week, and then the kids go after that. So for us, we're down to the nitty gritty, the final stages. Camp wraps up today. Swim lessons wrap up tomorrow. So it's going good for us.
We are in a different ball game. We're 4 weeks out still until school begins, as you know, Jay, as you're familiar with that. So one more week of base camp in addition to just the specialty camps we've got going on. And then after next week, we roll into some specialized camps that will ultimately be much more truncated just because we lose a lot of our part-time staff.
Yeah.
But it's been a good summer.
We're in the same boat. We still got 3 more weeks, and we've cut back the numbers because we do start losing staff this week and next week from, college students that are going back to college or maybe going back for the first time. But we still got 3 more weeks, and our staff is definitely counting down. They're ready to kind of just get a break from it. And it's been so hot and humid, so it wears on them, which I know we were talking about weather last time. But here's the thing. There's the end of summer in August for summer camp, but August also marks the closeness of fantasy football. So what are you more excited about, the end of summer camp coming for your staff or fantasy football?
I'll start on that one. There's no question for me. It's not even just fantasy football. It's football in general. We got a really great taste of the NFL last night with as the treat Hall of Fame game, the Browns hosting the Jets. But as we really get into it, and I guess you just baited us into probably mentioning what I said we shouldn't have to mention every week here, and that's the Buffalo
That was
Bills.
not the plan. I did not intend that.
Yeah, I'm sure. But it's Bills country is alive here. It is. People got the fever. Yeah. One of my buddies his family owns like a mattress, furniture, appliance type of business. And they got the call the other day from one of the reps at St. John Fisher College, where the Bills have the training camp. And like, yeah, some of the guys here just aren't happy with the beds. And so they're like, yeah, we'll bring them right over. So they brought over a whole bunch of beds. He got a picture.
Oh, that's awesome.
With Gabe Davis. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's here.
Well, for the people listening, we have a park and rec fantasy football league that has 12 people from around the country. Literally, there's someone from Texas, New York, myself in North Carolina, Missouri, Minnesota, and I'm not going to think of everything. Indiana. There's all over the place, and we come together every year. We've been having this league for probably, I don't know now, 6 or 7, maybe more than that years. But it's just another example of how our industry comes together, and we're just, we're more than just colleagues. We're in a way family. So it's looking forward to that year. I don't know that Shane looks forward to it as much as I do, because he kind of maybe doesn't love fantasy football, but he still does it with us.
I hate it. I'm trapped in this fucking league. Someone please help me get out.
Begrudgingly. He enjoys it.
Unless he's winning, and then he likes it.
Well, yeah, that's different.
Awesome. Well, hey, I'm excited about our guest. So let's get rolling and invite our guest to get started with us. So everyone knows our guest, and they have worked in 3 different parts of the country. Our guest has also been an adjunct faculty member at 3 different colleges. They are a member of the Academy. So I know both of you are familiar with a lot of Academy members. They are an instructor at NRPA Director School. They are a member of the Capra Commission. They are a previous member of Copart. They present regularly at both state and national conference. Shane, this person is a previous member of the conference program committee.
Okay.
So you are definitely familiar in that regard, since you have been on that committee for a long time. So I'm sure your heads are turning, thinking maybe you know, maybe you don't know.
Are they on the East Coast now?
They are now on the East Coast.
They left.
You are correct.
I know.
So I think Shane knows. My last hint was going to give it away, but even though Shane already knows. So not only are they a member of the Academy, but our guest today is the current chair of the Academy and currently sits as the Deputy Director for Park and Recreation and Tourism for Prince William County. Today's guest is Janet Bartnik. Welcome, Janet.
Nice.
Hey, welcome.
Hey, Janet.
What's up?
I knew you would guess at some point, Shane. I wanted to put in the chat though. Hey Tom, I just presented with you in Massachusetts, and see if you would join the fray with a good answer on that one.
Once Shane asked this question, I definitely had a pretty good idea, almost 99%.
Yeah.
I could have gone with so many different things, but obviously I wanted you to think about it for at least the first couple hints. But once you get talking about CPC, I'm sure your head's like, okay, different jobs, different regions, and you know that history.
Yeah, I was paring them down.
So Janet's name got brought up last time. You know, that's where part of this was. You know, Janet's name was brought up with Chris. And you know, Janet, if you want to give us just a brief overview of kind of where you've been, what you've been doing, but obviously, you know, Chris mentioned you in the mentoring capacity. We had a lot of conversations about mentoring. And I know you have done that for so many staff, including some of our close friends with Michael Biedenstein. And, you know, we talk to him on a daily basis. And, you know, I know he looks at you as one of the best professionals that's helped his career and just always there, not only for him, but for the state of Missouri. So maybe just kind of give a brief overview of what you've been doing.
I would love to talk about that. You know, I've always seen mentoring as having helped me more than what I've actually done to help others. I've been a lot less of a formal mentor for professionals than I have maybe an informal mentor. I don't know how that works, but I just know that I don't sign up, but people look at me as someone who has assisted them with their careers. And it's been quite a joy to have the career that I've had. Like, I fell into this job. It's been amazing. I wouldn't ever take any of it back. I love this field, and anything I can do to learn and grow is always a part of it. I've had some really great mentors, and Chris Nunes is one of them. I mean, technically I'm older, but he was at the Rocky Mountain Revenue Management School years ago when I rolled in. I'd had to wait because if you all don't know, my ex-husband is Joe Snook in Lee Summit, Missouri. And so he went to the Revenue Management School at Ogle Bay. And because we shared kids the boys were really young back then, he was going, and then I had to pick a different school because we needed to go at different times. And so I ended up going out to Colorado, and I got to meet Chris out there along with other folks that I just absolutely adore, like Chris Drapinski, Terry Reinard. A lot of those folks that I got to connect with out there have made impact on my career. I'd say probably the biggest impact in Troutman. Does anybody know Susan? Great Rivers Greenway in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. She's amazing. And I learned a lot about the kind of leader I wanted to be by watching her. She's just, the way she sees things and can find her way through the fray is amazing. I really learned a lot from her. And then when I went out to Kansas City side, became a director in Raymore, Tom Lovell from Lee Summit really took me under his wing and helped me find my way. A couple of years later, I run into Chris, and he opened so many doors for me. I just can't thank him enough for all the ways that he would see opportunities to connect me to things that would help me grow and become a better professional. So I really feel like I benefited way more by being a mentee than by being a mentor.
That's great. And you know, I've looked at you as a mentor, informal as well. So what you're saying resonates with me, whether you like it or not. That's just you know, you've been very inspirational to me. And Susan was one of my formal mentors in one of the really early years of my experiences at an NRPA conference. So I know exactly what you're talking about. She's amazing. And again, just super inspirational, everything that she's been able to do and pass it along. I do want to just poke at Chris. You said you're technically older, but I like to tell him every time that he looks, he in no way does he look younger. So I wanted to say that in a nice way. But yeah, so all joking aside, along that mentorship and that informal mentorship, you mentioned speaking at MRPA, at the Massachusetts Recreation and Park Association Conference. So not Janet's being humble. She spoke at the conference or presented there with me, but she also served as the keynote.
Mm.
And I believe you also did a couple, or at least one other session, right?
Yep.
In addition to
Yep.
how she's been somewhat of an informal mentor to so many, but including myself. She even took the time to come to one of my sessions, and that was one of the highlights of, honestly, of my career, just having you take the time to do that while you were there to present. But either way, you've kind of hit that scene where you're doing keynotes and speaking at different states, and your message in your keynote was extremely powerful. Talked a lot about your story, which I had no idea, half of what you've gone through and been through to get to where you are today. And it's, like I said before, incredibly inspiring. But also kind of a message about really taking ownership and being present in the
Yes.
communities you served. So let's transition into that. I don't want to necessarily have you recite your keynote, but that's something that really resonated with me from where I work. I work in a smaller community, and I fully believe in what you're saying. But there are obviously other situations where it might not be the case, where you live that close or in the communities you serve. But kind of elaborate on how important that has been to you, and the value you see in inserting yourself in the communities that you serve.
It is 100% for me about being authentic in your engagement of community members to truly understand what the community needs out of its parks and recreation system, right? We are the fabric of the community. We create the infrastructure that makes the healthy choice the easy choice by dropping parks and trails close by to people's homes. We are the ones who create the programs that build our kids into these amazing adults. And we also have the programs that bring people together socially. And if you don't understand who your community is as a full human, right? Pretend the community is a full human with all the elements of personality that each of us brings to the table combined into one. If you can't get into the community and dig in, authentically engage with each and every person that you can possibly sit down and have coffee with, which I don't even drink coffee, but that's fine. To really understand I think it's a lot harder to understand how to serve the community. So I've always been one, and yes, I've worked for small communities for the most part. So this is going to be a bigger challenge for me here at Prince William County with 500,000 people in even a smaller land area than I had out in Colorado, to be able to figure out how to connect with more and more folks to understand how the community wants to be served. But I'm going to do it because
Yeah.
it's the right thing to do. And it's me. I think, what you refer to, Tom, there's a piece in the community leadership and engagement keynote that I gave in Massachusetts that really spoke to how you view the world and how you see the world through the lens upon which, you built it. All your experiences and your background and the experiences you had at work, as well as the experiences at home, create the lens through. And that's also the way that others see you. And if you can understand that every single one of us, there's only a chance in a billion that somebody's going to have had the same experience as you have. Everyone's going to see their world differently. And the more you can understand them and ask questions, the better you can serve. And so there's a piece of the keynote where I shared a lot about me that folks wouldn't know, a lot of the information about who I am and what it was that I'm created from. But I think it makes the point that every single one of us is unique. And the more we can dig in and understand everyone, we can understand when they say the same words, different people have different meanings, and we can get a better understanding of what to do with that information.
Yeah, it's
What-
great. And really quick, before I know some that perspective of how everybody comes from, that's something I wrote. I took some notes during the session, and I almost wish I could record that. So many people need to hear something like that too. So I don't know. It was wonderful, and I know you'll keep pushing that message around.
So I've got a question.
Yep.
First
You
of
can
all,
ask the hard ones, Shane.
that's right. I will. First of all, I really connect with authentically serving your community. That's what's always allowed me to be in communities near noons, or be in communities like I am now near a town like Round Rock, and not feel competitive with them, because I'm just trying to authentically serve my community, not also serve their community. But as you're touring around and you're seeing our industry in a way that not a lot of other people get to see it, almost at a grassroots level, what are you seeing that is needed? Is it professional development? Is it more opportunities? Is it young professionals? Are we getting older quicker in this industry? Are we getting younger quicker in this industry? What are some of your tales from the road that you're seeing observation wise that maybe you weren't expecting when you first started doing your keynotes and your presentations around?
I think that's a really good question, Shane, and I think there are a lot of things I'm seeing in the field. I would say not all of it comes from going around and teaching at different places around the country. And just so that you all know, uh, getting to speak across the country is a great way to get to visit family when they don't live close to you. So like Tom knows, the reason I spoke in Massachusetts was because my son lives just down the road in Rhode Island, where he's going to grad school. So it's a great opportunity for me to get to do a conference for free and see my kid. So there you go. So some things that I'm seeing in the field that I think are to watch as we evolve. Definitely for the last at least 15 years, we've seen a lot of change at the collegiate level. Our academic programs are changing. We're changing names. We're changing curriculum. We're getting rid of programs. Our professors are aging out. If you look at a lot of the universities that are trying to recruit folks in as professors, we are lacking PhDs and EDDs in the field who can take their spot. So any of you who have master's degrees, who have an interest in just teaching and sharing the beauty of this profession to younger folks, definitely need you to enter the field. And by the same token, a lot of that comes from the need to put rear ends in seats on campus, right? And so we all know that we're a discovery major, but I do think that we as professionals have such an amazing captive audience in those 15 and 16-year-olds that come to work for us, that we have the opportunity to try to grab them. STEM isn't everything. So there's a lot to be said for social service too. But kids, especially kids who are 15 and 16, only see that one window that is the lifeguard position that they don't have anymore. Or that umpiring position or the front desk position or whatever it is that we have them doing for us. And for us to be able to enlighten them to see that there is a path to making this a career at 15, 16. So they're going into those programs and potentially helping save the foundation of our field at the university level, as well as get them filtering into our field as professionals, I think is something that we'll need to figure out how to do. There are a couple of groups working on it. But I know that there's no easy button for this, right? There's no easy button. I think in terms of other things that we need, I think sometimes we just have to get out of our own way. I think a lot of people know a lot of really great things about how to operate parks and recreation services, programs, departments. Wherever you are in your agency, you're a leader. And getting out of your way to understand how not to get frustrated with red tape, not to get lazy, for lack of a better word, and just give up on what can be, and think positively. I think sometimes in government we can get jaded when we're hit again and again and again with all of those negative comments from folks who don't know what it takes to create a trail. Not that I did that this morning, but I did. There's a lot of red meat to get through in terms of planning, development, reviews, engineering, all of that can make our jobs really hard just to create a simple footpath through the woods. But if we don't get jaded and get in our own way and allow ourselves to be open to what is the other way we can do this? Is there some other path to achieve what it is that we jointly, the community and us as professionals, want to achieve? I think sometimes that can help us see a different path. So those are the two things that come to mind right away.
You bring up the need for new professors at universities, because we've had that conversation, and I have talked about with Tom, because Tom actually does that. He does a class, or he's an adjunct at the university I went to. So it's kind of a very small world that he's teaching in the degree from the university I graduated from 20 plus years ago. But I've wanted to do that myself. I don't have a master's, so that's kind of held me back. But I'm trying to have some conversations with some local universities that may, not require that if it gets to that point where they're really needing people. And then on the other side of it, we are implementing a few programs here, and now you're giving me a new idea for a session at a conference of how our department is working with our local high school or school district in a general sense to educate the kids on what we do so they can pursue career paths in park and recreation. And we've actually had some really good success stories. We have a mentee program where if they're 13, 14 years old, we'll bring them on as like an intern, and then they get experience at a rec center. And we recently, and not just recently, but about 2 years ago, we had a few folks that graduated from colleges that have now full-time jobs in Park and Rec based on this mentee program that we have initiated years and years ago. And we have a new agreement that we're working with the school district to bring in the sports world of it. And we're actually going to bring on a curriculum with high school students to educate them on officiating. And we're going to pay them as an intern to officiate our youth sports. And then they get school credit in high
That's
school.
fantastic. I paid my way through college officiating. That's how I paid my way through, right? If this becomes successful, it could be a really good model for others. So I love the idea that you would present it at conference, but also make sure that if you have an opportunity and it looks like something that you can write up, share that with Eric Legg at Arizona State University, because he's one of the ones working on the whole research of this connection to get folks into the programs. I can't remember what the name, the State of Education is what it's called. There it is. It just finally popped into my head. It's called the State of Education for Parks and Rec.
Cool.
But it's Eric Legg, Legg at Arizona State.
We'll do.
So to follow up on education, not that this should be an academic discussion the whole time, I do think in our PA or our industry or our leadership in our industry probably bear some blame in some capacity, because I think we've seen that academic group drift away from us. I don't know if we pushed them. I don't know if they started swimming on their own, but it felt like there's been a disconnect between the academic profession and the Parks and Rec profession. I mean, I think the academy does things where they still try to include, but I don't know if that, it used to be like a branch or region or a section. And it's not that necessarily anymore. Is that too far gone? Can that be saved, in your opinion?
I don't think it's completely gone. And I don't think it's completely gone. I think there are some of us who are trying to pull that back in. I've worked on that for a long time. And probably it meant a lot to me because my mother was in higher education. She was a professor in Mississippi for a long time, but not my whole life. My mom and I went to college together. That's a whole nother story we can talk about another day. But what's interesting is, like, even when we were at Missouri Park and Rec Association, right? Susan Troutman, we talked about her earlier. She was president of the association, back in 2009, I think. This is how long ago this was. But the brilliance of the group, you can ensure that students have opportunities for internships through our department, as well as ensuring that your accredited university programs in particular have the opportunity to have those professionals come in and advise what's changing in the field. How do we need to change our curriculum? The students that we're putting out into the field, how are they doing? Are they succeeding in your agencies, or do we need to amend how we teach? There are just so many benefits to having done that. It was brilliant. I don't know that I'm answering your question though.
Well, I don't know if one person could answer it. So I think you did a great job.
Yeah, and I think if we keep an eye on looking at, even the Academy has created a research for the profession committee that is looking at how it can keep connected practitioners and educators. It's just really important. I will say the research for the profession group has gone ahead and pulled together. I can't remember what they called it. They gave it an acronym, and it's on the Academy's website now. But the goal is to create an opportunity for an agency, maybe a small agency like yours, Tom, that needs some kind of study done or some assistance. The research assistance community would come in, and rather than you paying for a consultant to come in and getting probably more than you bargained for, they would come in and help you, work with you in whatever direction you're looking for. I don't think we've had any takers for it yet. So I know folks are not thinking of that place to go and look for that kind of assistance because it's too new, but hopefully we'll get the word out soon enough and can connect folks to that opportunity.
Yeah, I'll add to that, and we'd be on board. I don't know if that's something that's only for people local to your area, but I would love to further that conversation. Going back to just, I know we don't want to spend all day on education, but the reason I was approached to instruct. So it's 2 classes now, 1 course a semester, are generally the issues that you explained, Janet, are what we're experiencing. So the actual Recreation and Leisure Studies department lost a couple of their full-time instructors, professors. They lost 2. They asked me to come because I was a regular guest lecturer, asked if I had a master's. Do not. And they just, based on my experience and their needs, they had made an alteration to that requirement, which I'm not so sure that's the direction they're going to go in. But we've had this discussion, Shane and Jay and some people that we talk with on a regular basis about some of this. The value of a master's. I'm not ever going to take away what people went through for their masters. However, when we take our civil service exams or things like that, there's always an equivalency, right? So, okay, you've got to have this education or 10 years in the field or 20 years. My question to you was, in your experience in doing that, what's been, and this for me or anybody that wants to go out there and potentially pursue instruction, what has been effective to you as an instructor? It's a challenge. I've been doing it for a while now, but you get a portion of your class that seems super engaged and they're all into it. You get another portion who are kind of level, they get through it. And then there's another portion that you really have to pull along.
Yeah.
How do you connect with the students that are, and I know that the other question is getting people in the seat.
I think this is the same conversation that we've had at NRPA about how we change the way we educate and do less of the, the sage on the stage type of lecture and figure out how to engage the community that you have. Granted, it's a small segment of, say 10 to 25 students. You've created a little community. How do you create an education opportunity there that they can participate in? They can help choose which direction that they go. They can help participate and share their expertise. A lot of the students I had were people who are already working in the field, which was great. So when they're already working in the field, we can talk about those things that we're running into at work and how they apply to the foundational element we're discussing. A lot of that made it way better for them to dig in and understand it and take that tidbit of philosophy and apply it to their day-to-day work. So I think that worked really well. I think when you're working with a group maybe that has fewer students that are working in the field, you may have to use more of your own experiences that they perhaps can relate to help understand the application of the information. But I don't know. I think for me, it doesn't pay to be an adjunct. I don't know how that works out for you at your university. Pay's not great, but you really have to have a passion for students, a passion for teaching, and a passion for the field to really want to do that work as an adjunct. They're adding positions that are full teaching positions. They're not professors in any way, shape, or form. They're called professors of practice in some areas, even though they're not professors. They're just teaching assistants. They're adding those as 3/4 or full-time positions. Those folks have heavy loads. It's a lot of work. The pay's not super great. So for, some of us thinking about, oh, well, I want to just teach and I leave the field, I would take a pretty big pay cut to get to do that. But it would be fun. And it's something that I would consider as I matriculate into my next phase of my life, in about 5 years and 5 months. Not that I'm counting.
Well, it's a countdown. I have not even started yet, but
yeah,
I just want to add to that too, that you mentioned about getting involved at that level at the earlier basis of the question. And that's another one of those opportunities I've had, is to be on that same agency and university that Jay mentioned, SUNY Brockport. And they also have practitioners, including myself, on their curriculum advisory committee. So having that opportunity, or seeking out those agencies even and asking, do you need a practitioner to sit on your curriculum advisory committee? It's been great. They don't meet that often. It's not a very big time commitment, but I've seen now in probably 6 or 7 years of being a part of that group, the curriculum change to really reflect some of what's happening now, some of what we as practitioners see as relevant to the field and those coming out of college into it. And lastly, on the education subject, since I am teaching at the university that Jay went to, basically I taught him everything he knows.
Okay, let's go on to the next topic. Virginia, you mentioned, obviously you're not there yet, maybe thinking about retirement. You said 5 years. Is there still like a task or an achievement that you are looking to accomplish, knowing that obviously you've accomplished so much, you're on so many different committees, you've been able to make such an impact in different regions, but is there still something that like, hey, I want to do this before I hang it up?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that I've thought about that myself.
Okay.
For me, what really gets me excited about our career is working with the community and then working with the staff. And I think that the joy for me over the years, as I weigh even those two options, right, being able to build things for the community, whether it's program services, whatever, versus really being able to build staff and staff teams, I think I've drawn more joy from building the staff teams side. Really helping them see the leader in themselves and moving up, helping them move up in the organization as best I can. That has really been the thing that's meant the most to me. And I feel like I get to do that anywhere I go. So I will do that until I'm tired of doing it. And I say I'm going to retire in 5+ years because I'll be 60 at that point, right? But who knows? If I'm really still digging what I'm doing, I'll stay. I just got to figure out, what I want to do. And do I shift into something more like teaching, which would be very rewarding for me? Or do I just stick with what I'm doing and keep building professionals wherever I go? So I don't know. We'll see.
I think
Time will tell.
I think that's an interesting part about our field is even when people can retire from an age perspective, a lot of folks just don't want to because we're really so happy with what we're doing. And I can't speak for all different fields and professions, but I don't think that's the same for everyone. I know that there's folks that are just like itching and counting down to be done because they don't look forward to the work they're doing, unlike most of us, obviously everyone on this call and people that we interact with on a regular basis.
Especially the public service side. There's a lot of our colleagues in the public service side that, public works or police or whatever, they know their number and they're gone afterwards. So,
Yeah.
Speaking of being in the field for a while and those that have the opportunity to impact, their industry, you're the president right now or chair, whatever, of the academy. What do they call it?
President.
President. Yep. Fellow academy member, fellow Bartnik here. What does that group look like in 15 years?
So we are, and you know the secrets because you've been in on the committee. For people who don't know, I pulled Shane in to give us an outside perspective on what the academy looks like to folks who have not been elected yet. And I think what I wanted to do is ensure that we take the academy and we really have to work with the academy membership to understand where it wants to go. It feels right now like we've grown so much that we've gotten beyond the capacity of what we can actually manage within the institution that we are, right? You're talking a max of 150 people. It's not a lot of money. It's really all about the time that these volunteers are willing to give. And how can we put this group of experts who have been in the field for more than 15 years at high level positions within their organizations, right? In order to be elected, you have to have presentations and publications and all of that. How do we take that incredible brilliance and experience and mix of all of that with the passion that we have and become those thought leaders that we think we are, and putting programs on the ground that really grow the profession and the practitioners in the field. And I think at this point, we're kind of on this precipice where we've lifted the lid and we've looked down the hole and thought, oh, wow, there's a lot that we could or should be doing. And I hope that the work that we did this year while I was president really sets the foundation for understanding where we can go and how we can change the academy to evolve to something that is a bit more nimble, that can not just redo the same programs year after year, but instead look at how we use those programs to change the field. Couple of ideas, and I don't know what will stick, so please don't hold me to any of this, but in looking at a gold medal program, it's great. It's awesome for status, and the agencies really want to achieve it, and it's a great thing. Most people think it's NRPAs and not ours. Fine.
Right.
But what can we actually get out of the gold medal program that changes the way we do business to better serve our communities? How can we look at the data that we collect from the agencies that submit their information for a gold medal, and use some of that research intelligence that we have from our educator friends to find themes that then we can report on, probably through NRPA, because we just don't have the staff and capacity to put out regular social media blasts and things, but to be able to change the way others do business in their agencies to help us better serve our communities. That's just one example. The externship program is amazing, but it only impacts 4 people a year. So that intense attention, mentorship, it's a great thing. Does it really change the way we do business? I don't know that we know. We've never evaluated that. So right now we're really doing a hard look at what can be and looking at where we are setting benchmarks. And I think during Tracy Crawford's presidency, she picks up at conference this year. The idea is that the board will then move into phase 2, and that's taking deeper dives in specific questions that we ended up bringing up this year, to see how we can change the way we approach our thought leader responsibilities. I hope that made sense.
I actually think the gold medal concept you mentioned is really unique, and I think it'd be really interesting to kind of dive into see if there is data that can be collected on, from these agencies that have won a gold medal, what has set them apart, what has made them, gold medal worthy, and what can they do to show that they've had that impact to help other departments grow, or impact that they've made to show them that, you can do this too if you take these steps. And then you mentioned the extern program. Extern program, obviously, for all 3 of us, we've all been through that program. We've been involved after being an extern in some capacity. I would urge and love to see the academy still keep the externs as involved as possible to grow other initiatives, because I know from talking to Tom and Shane and other externs that there is still an interest for a lot of folks to be involved in some capacity. And if that can help grow other initiatives or other areas that can see fit to grow the academy and just grow awareness of what it is you can do, but also help other professionals that may have been an extern 10 years ago, but they still want to do something that is beyond their day-to-day operations.
Well, and thank goodness for Linda Katowski, who will fight and claw, and she will call every single committee chair to make sure they know how important it is to keep externs involved in the academy, because there's such a lapse between the time that you're an extern and the time you can become eligible for election. And so I loved when she called me, and immediately I started emailing all the chairs so she didn't have to do it, because she's done it for years. But I think this is all an evolution of the academy that's going to take some time. I had hoped that we would get further along with the process through my year, and I figured, I told Shane, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be the most hated academy president ever, because I really want to see how we can change the way we do business, because we're not sustainable the way we are. We're just not. And so how do we change the way we do business to still have the impact we think we want to have? It's the fundamental question that we've tossed about for quite a bit. Are we a Hall of Fame, or are we thought leaders who want to impact the field? And the bottom line is we're actually both, but there's so much passion that we clearly do want to have an impact on the field. And you look back at things like, did you all know there's a Legends program?
Not at first.
Yeah, right? So the Legends program has secretly, I'm going to jokingly say secretly, so people who are listening don't see my air quotes, but it's not really secret, but for decades, we've been recording legends in the field and just having kind of that conversation by the fern about what it was that was amazing about their career and what takeaways they can share with people to help them grow. And they've just been basically, I'm going to call it sitting in a box, because we haven't been able to post them, and they aren't very exciting to watch. But I'm going to say 9 years ago, back in 2014, it was right around 2014, 2015, when I joined the academy. Dan Dustin and Kelly Bricker, who were both in Utah at the time, recognized that something needed to be done with those. They're terrible to watch. They're not exciting. They're really not great. So they assigned some of their grad students to watch every single Legends video, and there had to be 120 of them at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they pulled out themes from each of those. And if you've noticed and you've been on the CPC, you might have seen that for a time, there were 3 or 4 that 2 NRPA conference as a program session introduced this themed Legends video. And I will say they did an amazing job. If you get an opportunity to go to the Academy's website, you can actually go into the Legends program page. And on the left sidebar, you can click into some of those themed videos. They are posted. The individuals' videos are not posted yet because there are like now 150 of them. But the themed videos are posted, and they're really valuable, I think, if you want to look at how it was for women in the field, or how it was for African Americans, or something about the National Park Service. I can't remember all the themes, but there are like 17 that will be out at some point. 17 videos, and I think we have 5, 6, 7 of them. They are still working on completing the rest of the themed videos that they started in 2016 by the time we got through getting funding for it. So that is the kind of thing that I think we should be looking at regularly as the Academy, taking those programs that we have, like the Legends program, and looking at how do we make this more useful, digestible, and in a way that can impact the field. We talked about the gold medals. Certainly there are other things that we could do.
I don't know.
Sounds like it's a Legends podcast.
Right.
I don't know if anybody has seen the NFL films A Football Life, but if that Legends thing could be created in such a way where it was like a Rec Life, where someone talks about young,
That's cool.
Yeah, that would be something that would a lot of production value. I get it, but that would be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I did not know of that many videos floating around there, and it's definitely a daunting task to have someone watch all of those and try to be able to pull things. That's really unique and interesting.
I got a question. It's interesting talking about the Legends and what it was like to be a female at that time, or being maybe a young professional at that time. It seems like I remember talking to somebody about just recently about something that happened in like '96 in our park system, and I was trying to explain to them. I was like, we didn't even have cell phones back then, like not like we have today. Like it seems like that wasn't that long ago, and in the grand scheme of a 150-year-old agency, it probably wasn't. But a lot has changed in what would be a short amount of time in our world.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for a young professional. Being a young professional is different today than it was 15 years ago, and definitely than it was 50 years ago. What advice would you have for a young professional launching now, like that maybe would be different than advice you would have given them previously?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. When my career started, we were still doing registration on paper in notebooks. We didn't have any computer systems to take registration, and there certainly wasn't any online registration opportunity, right? So, I had to learn how to structure a registration program for multiple age groups of, we'll say, basketball kids.
Yeah.
And then figure out how to make teams. Like, you couldn't just push a button in one of the programming softwares, right? You actually had to do them.
The ability to bracket, I think, has been lost. I mean, I think of all the times that, you knew exactly how many games you'd have to play in a 16-team bracket or a 15-team bracket, and who do you have to give a bye to, and those things have probably been lost over the years. But I also couldn't produce a video, so all these young professionals probably could. So I guess there's a yin and a yang to it.
I think the basics of what you recommend for a young professional haven't changed, right? I still remember back for anyone that really it was all about getting the professional network going. Okay, I'll just say it. I started my career in 1991, right? So it was really all about getting connected into the association, which for me back then was campus recreation, so NERSA.
Yeah.
So I was going to NERSA on a regular basis. We had a more regional NERSA we could go to, and certainly visiting other college campuses was really important to us. Understanding what other people are doing and not having the blinders on. that what I see here at my agency is the only way to do things. Because just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean that that's the way it should continue to be done. And I really think that that's the key, building yourself a network of folks, whether you can do that through connections at YPN, connection at NRPA, connection at your state association, even connections at your regional. Like I remember St. Louis had the St. Louis area, the city managers were SLACMA. We had a recreation group. We called it the Munis group. I mean, all of those things are available to you. And the more you know, the better you can serve. And I don't think that's changed. I think that's still the same today. Just there are more opportunities for it. You have social media groups that you can dig into and learn. But I really think it's understanding what else is out there so that you're not, while you're learning your own, you understand it's not the only way to go and the only thing that's out there. I mean, let's face it, we're not doing a job where, anything's earth shattering. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time, nobody's going to die today because we didn't program that correctly, or we didn't give somebody a bye the week that they really needed the bye week. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, grow, learn, try new things, be innovative. And innovative doesn't necessarily always mean creative. It just means better. Make something just one notch better. Be a leader where you stand. Don't worry about being a director tomorrow. Be a leader where you are, because that matters, and you can have an influence on your community from where you are today. You don't have to be the top person in the department to impact your community. What you do matters every single day. I think those are the things that I would recommend.
Those are some great words, Janet. I want to just ask a follow-up question on that too. We talked about mentorship, so I just want to kind of pull it full circle with what you just said. You just gave some really great advice out there. And I think everybody here has had someone in their career that said something or gave them a piece of advice that has stuck with them. For me, it's been multiple, but I think of one always, and it's a gentleman named Jeff Myers, who's local to our area. He's in our region. And he said he's now retired as of last year, so congratulations to him. But he always used to say, the day that I feel like I know it all or have nothing else to learn is the day that I need to hang him up. And so that's always stuck with me, and I've always had this hunger to keep learning and growing. And so that's what keeps me going. That's part of my why. It's not the entire, but that's a big part of it. Is there something that someone gave you along the way that just stuck with you and that you would pass along to any of us?
So many people give me so many things. I mean, I built a career on stealing ideas from other people, right? We all do, and thank goodness for that. I just think I naturally have a passion for learning. I'm curious as can be, which probably drives my family crazy. I would say probably the best thing, I was very shy when very serious, but very shy when I started my career. And I think it was allowing myself to go with people, to meet more people in the field, allowing myself to be open to networks. I think that was what really helped. And I think, Tom Lovell probably did the best in terms of helping me grow my own wings and start exploring and learning about other agencies, because I hadn't learned that lesson before I got to the Kansas City side of Missouri. I really hadn't. It was way too serious. I thought, well, this is the way you do things. And then I started learning about how other people work and operate, and that helped a lot. So I would say Tom making me go to lunch with him occasionally was really a big boon to my career.
Follow up on the lunch question. It's interesting how close we are as an industry, and how I've never worked one-on-one with you or in your agency, but someone can say your name and I can be like, yo, I absolutely know her. We're very close, right? But us four have never sat down at the table and talked we see each other in different sections of conference or life in our industry, but we're not all together. So I wanted to ask you a question. You have a 4-person Parks and Rec dinner. Who are your other three people at the table?
It's a great question.
But
Yeah.
on the spot.
Well, I'm going to say, first of all, I have sat down and had dinner with Jay.
It's not appealing.
We played Uno.
Snacks, food's all
We
over
played
the place.
Uno in Columbia, Missouri.
Uno and
Oh, was it Yahtzee? It was Yahtzee.
So like, I mean, I'm not. This isn't like a afternoon. Like this was like going through the hotel lobby at a conference, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and she's playing Yahtzee. And I said, "I'll play."
No, and Jay pulled out his personal dice kit. I've seen it.
Well, he got to meet my mom.
True. Yes. Okay. We can't avoid this question, though. This is a really good question.
Well, you know,
good question. I just needed to buy myself some time.
That's fair.
Just to give Janet a little buffer to think some more too. I think that's what's special about our profession. To be completely honest, what you just mentioned, you ran into Jay and he met your mother and you sat down and played a game. Those types of things happen so often and maybe not Yahtzee and maybe not Jay's special dice kit, but just in general, just those conversations. It's such a welcoming group. And I can only imagine trying to nail it down to 3 people to sit down at a dinner with.
The genesis of this podcast was us trying to do that, right? In some capacity. So
yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So if I could have a 4-person, that means I need to invite 3 others.
That's right.
I would want to invite. Okay, so one of the people I would want to really spend time with is John Crompton. And I choose John Crompton just because he has studied the field so much from an economic impact perspective, and the way he sees Parks and Recreation and its role in all of government, I think allows us to see ourselves, as much as he is an insider being on council like he is, he's also an outsider, and he has that lens to see us within the whole spectrum of governance. And to learn more from him at dinner would be amazing for me. Let's see, who else would I want to have dinner with? So many options. I will say I don't get to see Chris Drapinski as much as I would like, and she is retiring from Barry Dunn right now. And there's just something about Chris Drapinski. If you don't know her, you need to. She is also, like Susan Troutman, a quiet force in the field. She was at Boulder for a long time and then went to the dark side into being a consultant. And I'm glad she did, because I think she's made a lot of difference for a lot of people. And she just has this way about her where she just literally makes sense of things. She's easy to have conversations both personally and professionally at the same time. And I think there's a lot to be said for someone who just gives you that level of comfort while they're still helping teach you to be a better human and a better professional. So I would love to have Chris Drapinski there. And I think the last, I would honestly love to have Jane Addams at dinner. She has seen a lot in the field.
Well, someone's got to pay for dinner.
And someone has to pay for dinner. Yeah. Yeah, I would pay for dinner for the 3 of them. I think Jane Addams also is one of those who has a unique perspective on the field, having worked in the field in the Midwest, been in California for a long time, now overseeing the academy in her retirement, putting way more hours than she gets paid to put in. I think she has seen a lot and understands a lot. And I think oftentimes she'll say something to me that just makes me giggle. And I think spending more time with her would be great. So there are 3.
That's a great dinner party.
I could pick like probably 100 more, but it's a hard decision.
I think we may find a new question that has to be a standing question for every episode, because that's going to be different for everybody, and will definitely be a make you think, because you got to think deep about that one, because that's pretty impactful. And I think we've all had like individual, maybe either small group or individual, or maybe even in some capacity, a large meeting of lunch or dinner. I remember going to lunch with Dirk like almost every conference, and it was always, him and I, and we would grab any other random folks. It was one year, it was me, him, and Kara. One year it was in Houston, and it was me, him, Kara, and we saw like 3 people walking down to a restaurant, and we just joined them. And it wasn't planned, but thinking about that is a really tough question for our industry, since there's so many folks that have impacted all of us in different ways, whether it's early on in our career or at the end or throughout the entire duration of the career.
I think what's interesting about our industry as well, and networking and mentorship, is that I've never got to spend a lot of time with Chris Strapinski, but I have got to spend a lot of time with Linda Katowski, and you can feel other people's influences, even through, it's like secondhand smoke or something, but in a good way, a positive way, right? So like, I think Dirk's impact lives on through Janet, obviously, and Chris Noons and others that I think of when I think of Dirk. And it's almost like I could envision exactly what that conversation would go like at that table. It would be a fun table to attend, but I can think of other people that maybe it's not Chris for me, but it's Linda Katowski, who I actually get to eat lunch with every year at conference. And what I've learned from her over the years has been invaluable. So it'll be fun to see what other guests.
Think about it. You can even put in some of our other consultants. Like, I mean, wouldn't you love to sit down and have lunch with Nilay Bhatt, right?
Yep.
I mean, somebody who just thinks ahead of the rest of us.
Absolutely.
What a great opportunity to see what other folks who are your guests are thinking about having it at their lunch.
Well, and it's funny because when we go to a conference, and I remember this vividly last year in Phoenix, I think Shane and Tom and I were having a conversation with Nilay out at a social or somewhere. And what started as just like the 3 of us having like a very intimate conversation, everyone sees Nilay and they're like, oh, I want to go talk to Nilay. And then before you know it, there's like 9 of us, but the conversation changes because you're just shifting with more people there. So, having that 4-person dinner, keeps it a lot more intimate, and it would change the dynamic of those topics you're talking about for sure.
Janet, you just moved across country, so you probably don't have a lot of time to relax, but what do you do for work-life balance? What do you do to recharge? What are you doing to take care of yourself when you're not working, other than unboxing and probably trying to move into some house?
Along Shane's lines too, you had shared with me one of the reasons that move was so important to you, family.
Yeah, I'll start with that so that everybody knows why. So my dad turned 80 March 30th, and he's healthy. He's not sick. But it was interesting that we moved to Colorado from the Kansas City metro to be closer to my husband's family. They were in the Denver metro region, and it was nice to be there. But once his father passed away and then both his parents were gone, it gave us an opportunity to think about maybe not waiting until retirement before we moved back closer to my family. My mother had just moved from Kansas City because I had, of course, invited her to come up and live close to us in Kansas City, and then 5 years later moved away. But she was in South Carolina. My dad is still in my hometown, Fredericksburg, Virginia. And so Bud looked at me and said, hey, if you want to head, we don't need to wait for retirement because my parents are gone. And I was like, okay. So we started looking for jobs and ended up landing here in Prince William County. So I am spending a lot of time unboxing. We are just this past week or so moving into the house that we bought in Prince William County. But generally speaking, I am a jogger. So I like to run. I'm hoping to get back into that. I spent a lot of time hiking in Colorado to get out into nothingness. As much as I could be out in U.S. Forest Service land or BLM land, I was out there. It was fantastic. I did learn that I also really love my stand-up paddleboard. And so one of the other things that I did for work-life balance was riding my paddleboard down the Colorado River.
Wow.
I have a few scars, not too many, but just a few. But there's something so zen about being able to stand up on the paddleboard while the mountains are just flowing on either side of you. And if you go early in the morning, you can see the deer, the bears, the beavers, the bighorn sheep. And there's just something spectacular about that, just that moment in nature. that really brings everything home and gets you relaxed. So that's what I do as I'm an outside person. I hope that here in Prince William County, I can find some really nice wooded trails that I can start running, do some trail running again. I miss that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Janet, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us and spending time with us, and look forward to seeing you in a few months in Dallas.
I can't wait to see you all in Dallas. We'll have to have that lunch.
We'll have
Yes.
Right.
The four of us.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much, Janet.
All right. You all enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Awesome.
Good
Take
to
care.
see you,
Thanks
Janet.
again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Janet's
What a
always a
great
pleasure,
one.
man. She just
Oh, man.
brings a great dynamic, and so knowledgeable and just easy to talk to.
Very
It's
calming
fun.
presence too, just makes everybody feel comfortable and welcomed.
Yeah, and has such a different approach sometimes to things. We're on the accreditation board together for Capra, and she's got some great ideas that are being changed right now for what will be literally almost flipping Capra upside down. And she is the brainchild of that and spearheading the lead for that. And then the education piece of it, she just brings a different dynamic with that too. So it's always fun to talk to her.
Yeah, I mentioned that she, in that keynote that she had done in Massachusetts, about how she kind of ended and put it full circle, and she talked about different perspectives and never really understanding. We'd tell our part-time staff a lot too, that you don't know what a child or a family's going through. You just don't know. They could be coming to you and going through some really hard times or not. It always depends on the person. So the way you treat them and trying to understand that is so important. Anyway, I just encourage anybody to get out and see what Janet has to say at a keynote. And especially if they get to see that one, I really almost wanted to ask her to recite that part because it was so amazing. We learned a lot about her just now, but what I learned about there was it's fascinating what she's been through and where she's come from. So if you all get a chance, and then any of the listeners, join her in Georgia or sit down and ask her to tell you about it.
That's what's cool
Yeah.
about Janet is she would sit with anybody.
Oh yeah.
She's got such a great temperament, which I've always appreciated. And I think you're right, Jay. She sees and processes the unknown as well as anyone I've seen do it. Like what she's doing in the academy, what she's doing at Capra. I'm sure she's done it industry at the different locations she's worked. But
Yep.
like, if I see something happening or I see a change needs to come, it's a lot more deliberate. It takes me some time. She processes it. It seems so quick that she clearly sees that a new direction is needing to be taken, and she can calmly lead people towards it. It's incredible.
And I think sometimes she makes you think, like, whoa, why haven't we thought of that? That's a great idea. We should really try to implement that, or proceed with these changes. And she thinks of them all the time, just because her, like you said, like she thinks of things outside the box or thinks of things differently. And it's like, man, I want to get in her brain and just kind of figure out how that works, because I don't think about that the way she does.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love Shane. Great question at the end there. I love the idea of throwing in something unique like that every time. And I can't wait to hear what more people have to say. But Janet certainly hit a home run with hers.
Yeah, it was great.
That might need to be a standing question, and would look forward to hearing everyone's response.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, awesome, guys. That will wrap up another episode of RecLess. Looking forward to another time talking to you, and thank you guys, and hope you have a good weekend and good night.
Excellent job, Jay.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks. This was great, guys.
Thanks,
We'll see you
guys.
next time.
We'll talk to you soon.